Let's start with New York Mayor Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani, who's having yet another totally normal one. This time he's repeatedly refused to say that Hamas should lay down its weapons. Have a look at this.
Do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
CJ, what an utterly bizarre lack of response. I mean, Hamas is a terror group. Why is it so hard for him to say, yes, these jihadis should indeed lay down their weapons?
Yeah, why is it so hard for Democrats to condemn terrorists? It's a question that puzzles me every single day. But Zoran Mamdani is yet another example of a Democrat who lacks the courage to meet the moment. Here's the deal here. When you look at what's happening, in New York City, in the Middle East, and all of these things, it's convenient for him to, ironically enough, become an America First patriot, right? He says, let's talk about what's happening in New York City. Let's talk about what's happening in America. But where is that energy on any other issue? What we're talking about here is that this is someone who has sympathized openly with Hamas, who sympathized openly with the very terrorists who committed the acts that occurred on October 7th. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that he lacks the moral conviction to condemn evil for what it is. But what I will say is that I think the people of New York City need to be cognizant when they make the decision on Election Day as to who will be their next mayor. Someone who cannot condemn terrorism in a city that was affected by 9/11, or someone that will lead. And I got to tell you, it's like, I don't like the remaining options. Andrew Cuomo would not be my first choice. And I think Curtis Sowell would be the best, but he has a slim, narrow path to victory. But Zoran Mamdani, he will destroy America's brightest city if he's allowed to take office.
Oh, look, I don't doubt that. You're right. I mean, the candidates on the table right now are really, it's slim pickings, but Zoran Mamdani is an absolute shocker, and it would be dangerous, I think, if he was to get in. Now, veteran Democratic strategist James Carville, who, he's been a very frequent critic of Donald Trump, but he now says that the president does deserve due credit for negotiating a peace deal to stop the war in Gaza. Have a listen.
Bringing these hostages back, I don't know, you can say, well, it may not last that long, but you know what? He did it. And I think he deserves some credit for it. Right? They just do.
The reality is, CJ, Donald Trump has been able to do what the Democrats could not. Not one Democrat has been able to do this. And of all the people, James Carville has at least given some acknowledgement. It's a real shame that the Dems cannot do the same.
You're exactly right. President Trump did in 10 months what Joe Biden could not do in 4 years. And he did it through the old-fashioned Reagan ideal of peace through strength. And he deserves a lot of credit for it. And I got to tell you that a lot of folks leading up to this incredible peace deal said that it was impossible. They said that it could not be done. But President Trump did the impossible, as he does every single day. And so when I look at what the left is saying and all of these things, they want to say free Palestine this, free Palestine that. Well, President Trump just did that. So give him his flowers, thank him, show your gratitude, because he did, as I just said, what Joe Biden showed an inability to do every single day. You want to know why he could not do it? Because the world didn't respect him. Our enemies didn't fear him. But President Trump, again, has restored American strength and integrity on the world stage. And that is why this deal was done. And that is why this deal will sustain. It is an incredible march towards peace that we have never seen before. And God bless him for it, because as the Bible said, blessed are the peacemakers.
Yeah, and Donald Trump's been the only leader, really, around the world, to be honest, with the moral clarity and the moral courage to say, all hell will break loose if Hamas does not release the hostages. He said it from day one, and here we are today. So, all credit to him. He deserves all the credit he gets on this. Meanwhile, the president has confirmed that he authorised the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela and said he was considering strikes targeting drug cartels there. US forces have already conducted at least 5 strikes on suspected drug-carrying boats in the Caribbean Caribbean in recent weeks, killing 27 people. Now, Donald Trump was asked today why he is not stopping the boats via the Coast Guard instead of striking them. Here was his response.
Because we've been doing that for 30 years and it has been totally ineffective. They have faster boats. Some of these boats are seriously, I mean, they're world-class speedboats, but they're not faster than missiles. But we've been trying to do that for years, and so much of the drugs, 25–30%, would come in through the seas. Right now we have, I would say, none coming in through the seas.
CJ, human rights experts are calling this extrajudicial executions, but safety comes first, right? I mean, this is an administration that is not mucking around, clearly, and not taking any chances to protect its citizens.
You're exactly right. These people are not drug dealers. They're narco-terrorists. And I think that we should treat terrorists in the way in which President Trump is treating them. Our national security is the most paramount thing, but also, too, let's get down to the brass tacks of all of this, right? These people are poisoning Americans. They are coming and bringing this poison into our borders. They're, leading to the death of many, many young people all across this country. I've lost friends because of the terrible, despicable things these folks are bringing into our country. And so President Trump is exactly right to, respond to this with acts of strength. And I think that he'll continue to do it. And I think the American people resoundingly support his actions in doing so. And so I've got to say, while many of the folks in the mainstream media may be clutching their pearls, the American people are clapping their hands.
Yeah, look, I don't doubt that. Absolutely, safety first. Now, Democratic lawmakers have stormed House Speaker Mike Johnson's office, demanding that he swear in a newly elected representative. Have a look at this. Gee, CJ, they just make such a spectacle of themselves. And I've got to say, the Democrats seem to be really revelling in this government shutdown. I mean, Mike Johnson has already said that he would swear this representative in once Congress reaches an agreement to reopen the government. But the problem is the Dems are insisting on playing these childish games.
No, you're exactly right. And I think, I'm old enough to remember when storming the office of the Speaker of the House would have been called an insurrection or January 6th. But I guess when the Democrats do it, no one cares. But let's talk about this shutdown, right? This is a Schumer shutdown. If the Democrats want to reopen the government, they could easily do so. We need a few votes from Senate Democrats to do it. They continue to withhold those votes as a part of this partisan political stunt. Republicans have done their job. The House has done their job. The power now lies within Senate Democrats to do their job. But yet they continue not to do so. They continue to hold, the pay of our brave men and women who serve our military hostage. They continue to hold the pay of our brave men and women who are serving our country and the administration, from the Department of Defense, Department of Health and Human Services, critical resources hostage because they want to prove a political and partisan point. And soon what we will see is that, people that are living in poverty, women and children, will lose their benefits because of, again, political partisan politics. It's disgusting. But again, it reminds me of what we used to hear from Maya Angelou, right? She said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The Democrats have shown us who they are. Political partisans who don't give a damn about this country and at every opportunity take no hesitation in exhibiting just that fact.
Yeah, look, good point. And they're just wasting everyone's time in the process with these ridiculous demands as well that they've been putting out, for the government to reopen it. It's just unbelievable. Now, CJ, I found this one quite interesting. Election officials in Minnesota have confirmed that illegals can now vote in state elections, would you believe, after Tim Walz signed a driver's licenses for all law back in 2023, allowing them to obtain government-issued photo IDs for free. Have a look.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
So we give driver's licenses to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to, which is a photo ID. So if someone comes in, they register, they have the driver's license, but they have an incorrect social or no social or whatever. So then they become incomplete. But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
Mr. Linnell. Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder, CJ, if this was some sort of ploy for a vote grab by the Democrats. But how is something like this allowed?
It shouldn't be allowed, and it's exactly that. It's a vote grab. As many, minorities, Black Americans flee the Democrat Party in record numbers, they're having to find new votes, and they're fighting that within the populations of illegal aliens. And so they're eager to make sure that they're able to vote. But, as I said in the previous block here, I'm old enough to remember when Democrats, storming the office of a speaker would be called an insurrection. I'm also old enough to remember when Americans voted in American elections. But apparently Democrats want to move away from that because they feel as if their grip on power is slowly but surely giving away. And it's rightfully so, because the American people know the Democrats don't care about American citizens. They care about illegal aliens first. Black Americans know it. White Americans know it. We all know it. These people have shown time and again, they don't give a damn about the people that actually pay taxes here, that live here, that came here the right way. They only are consumed with continuing their grip on power via the illegal aliens that they've imported into this country.
Yeah, it's such a shame. Illegal aliens first, actual Americans second. Unbelievable. But yeah, no, we're not surprised when it comes to the Democrats. Now, the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has warned Moscow that the US and its allies will impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression if the war in Ukraine does not come to an end. He said, quote, "If we must take this step, the US War Department stands ready to do our part in ways that only the United States can do." CJ, of course, there was that summit recently with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin on working towards ending this war, but it does seem to be now at a stalemate. How likely is it that the US will indeed step up and make good on these threats if Moscow does not come to the table?
Well, I'll tell you, I was with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, just last week, and when we were talking about this, he said that, the Trump doctrine is peace through strength. Marco Rubio has the peace part, and Pete Hegseth has the war part. And I guarantee you that we're going to work to ensure that both of those factions are working in tandem with one another. With a president that actually leads from the front and not from behind, I think Russia knows who they're dealing with. I think Vladimir Putin knows who he's dealing with, and also Zelensky knows who he's dealing with. And so rest assured, you should all know that President Trump is not going to stop until we ensure that there is peace in this situation. And as has been demonstrated by the way in which he handled the conflict between Hamas and Israel, which some would say was a lot more trickier than what we're seeing between Russia and Ukraine, he's going to continue to, again, lead by that doctrine, peace through strength, but also what we like to say here in America, FAFO. And I got to tell you, I don't think Russia wants to find out. I don't think Ukraine wants to find out either. And so I think all these folks are going to come to the table, and there's going to be peace very soon in that region.
Well, look, if anyone can do it, it's Donald Trump. He's done one war. He's helped with that. Let's see Russia, Ukraine next. CJ Pearson, nice to catch up with you. Thank you very much for your time this evening.